I didn't plan to crash a party. I was just delivering a gift. A thoughtful one, actually, wrapped in mint green paper with gold stars, picked out by my daughter, Sarai. But when my mom opened that door and looked at me like I was a stranger, her eyes cold, her lips tight, I knew. I wasn't part of the celebration. I wasn't part of the family. Not anymore. And what she said next, I'll never forget it. You shouldn't be here. She didn't whisper it. She didn't smile. Just flat, like we were the unwanted guests at someone else's wedding. I didn't even know there was a party. That's the part that stings the most. No invitation, no text, not even a heads up. I looked past her shoulder. Streamers. Balloons. A huge "Welcome Baby Micah" banner hung over the fireplace. Dozens of people, many I grew up with, stood holding little plates of catered food, laughing, until they saw me. Then silence. Just the background music still playing on the speaker, awkwardly loud in the hush. I tried to find my brother, Miles, in the crowd. He was by the punch bowl, grinning at someone, until he spotted me. His smile faded. He glanced at our mom, then looked away like he didn't know me. I turned to my daughter. Sarai's hand was tight in mine. She was wearing her favorite yellow dress, the one with the daisy buttons. I bent down to whisper, "Sweetheart, let's just leave the gift and go, okay?" But before I could straighten up, Sarai let go of my hand. She walked right up to my mother, looked her dead in the eye, and said, completely calm, "I know we shouldn't be here. That's why I brought Dad's lawyer, too." It hit the room like a lightning bolt. You could feel the silence crash down. Even the baby stopped crying. Forks froze mid-air. Few people exchanged nervous glances. My mom's face went pale, her jaw clenched. But Sarai just stood there, steady, like she'd rehearsed it. And then, without saying a word, she reached into her little sparkly unicorn backpack and pulled out a business card. Crisp, clean, embossed in silver. Henry Ortiz, family law attorney, my ex-husband's card. Let me back up for a second. Henry is Sarai's dad, and my ex. We divorced 3 years ago, and while our marriage didn't survive, our co-parenting did. We're civil, supportive. He's not just a lawyer. He's the kind of man who shows up. He stayed in our daughter's life. He stayed in mine, in his own way, especially when it became clear that my family had quietly started to pull away after the divorce. First, it was subtle. Group chats that suddenly had new versions I wasn't in. Traditions that got moved around without anyone telling me. Then it was birthdays I wasn't invited to, holidays I learned about from Instagram photos. But I still sent gifts, still called, still smiled through the hurt. Until this day, this moment. I felt my heart pounding in my ears, not out of anger, but shame, confusion, embarrassment. I wasn't the angry ex, the dramatic sister, or the black sheep. I was the woman holding a soft, beautiful baby blanket, watching a door close in her face while her own mother pretended she was a stranger. And my daughter, 10 years old, stood her ground. Not with a tantrum, not with tears, but with clarity, with purpose. "You brought Dad's lawyer?" I whispered to her, shocked. Sarai nodded, eyes still locked on her grandmother. "I saw the texts, Mom. I saw everything. I just wanted them to know we're not alone." That's when I realized this wasn't about a party. This was about something bigger, something that had been building for years, something I had ignored to keep the peace. And it was Sarai, my quiet, observant, sunflower-hearted daughter, who saw through the silence and decided she wasn't going to let them erase us quietly. I didn't always feel like an outsider in my own family. There was a time when we were close, like really close. We were the kind of family that had Sunday spaghetti nights where everyone showed up whether they wanted to or not. My mom, Renee, was the glue. Strong, structured, never emotional. She believed in rules and she believed in Miles, her golden boy. Me, I was the dependable one, the one who helped wash dishes, who played peacemaker when Miles got too loud or Dad had one drink too many. I was the helper, not the favorite, never the favorite. And that was okay for a long time, until I got married, and then divorced. That's when things started to shift. Henry and I didn't end in flames, we just grew into different people. He became more obsessed with work, and I grew exhausted trying to hold everything together. When we finally split, my mom's reaction wasn't sympathy. It was disappointment, not even hidden. "You should have tried harder," she told me. "A girl needs to keep her family together." I remember standing in her kitchen after I'd told her, my hands shaking as I tried to drink tea, her words slicing through my already fragile calm. "He cheated on me, Mom," I'd said, "with someone from work." She didn't even blink. She didn't even blink. "And? Men make mistakes. You don't just blow up a family over a mistake." That was the beginning, the slow closing of the circle. Not a slam, just a drift. Invitations slowed, then stopped. Phone calls became strained. I still tried, especially for Sarai's sake. I didn't want her to feel cut off from her roots, but somehow I became the one always reaching across a canyon. That Saturday morning, the day of the party, I didn't suspect anything. Sarai and I had just come from Target. She picked out a gift for baby Micah, a soft blanket and a little stuffed elephant that rattled when you shook it. "We can't stay long," I reminded her. "We'll just drop it off." "I know," she said, swinging the bag by her side. "Just dropping it off." Sarai's always been sharp. I sometimes forget how much she sees, how much she understands at 10 years old. She's a mix of me and Henry, but somehow more thoughtful than either of us. She reads people like books. On the drive over, I rehearsed what I'd say if things felt awkward. "Just wanted to drop this off." I'd smile. "Congrats again." That was it. No drama, no expectations. I hadn't even worn makeup. I wasn't there to make a statement. I didn't even know there was a party. I hadn't been told. No invite, no text. I only found out later. Janessa, my sister-in-law, had sent out digital invites. My name wasn't on the list. Neither was Sarai's. Everyone else had known. Everyone else had planned. But me? I was the ghost. The afterthought. It didn't click until I saw the parking situation on their street. The balloons tied to the porch railing. The laughter and music leaking out through the open windows. That sinking cold feeling hit me the second I stepped out of the car. "Mom?" Sarai asked, looking around. "Is this a party?" I nodded slowly. "Looks like it." She didn't say anything right away, just hugged the gift bag closer to her chest. I hesitated at the bottom step. My stomach flipped. I wanted to leave, honestly. Just drive away, save the dignity, drop the gift off later when no one was home. But Sarai looked up at me and whispered, "We're here now." So we climbed the steps, and that's when everything changed. I didn't know what Sarai had packed in her little backpack. I didn't know she'd taken one of Henry's business cards from the kitchen drawer. I didn't know she had seen the text messages I thought I'd hidden, group chats with my mom and Miles, planning the party and saying, "Don't worry, she won't come. She never does." But Sarai knew. And somewhere in her little heart, she made a choice. Not to start a war, but to end the silence. That's the thing about being excluded. You don't notice the first door closing, or the second. But one day, you look around and realize you're standing in the hallway, alone, and your child's watching. I thought I was just dropping off a gift, but what I was really delivering was the truth. As soon as the door opened, I knew we had made a mistake. My mom, Renee, stood in the doorway in a pearl pink blouse and glossy lipstick. She looked startled. Not just surprised. Caught. Her eyes landed on the gift bag in Sarai's hands, then shifted to my face like she was deciding how loud she needed to be. "You shouldn't be here." 4 words. No hesitation. She didn't step aside to let us in. She didn't ask how we were. She didn't smile at her granddaughter. I froze. My feet were planted on the welcome mat, but suddenly the word welcome on it felt like a joke. I looked at her, blinking, as if maybe I had heard it wrong. I held out the bag. We wanted to drop off the gift. Behind her, I saw the whole setup. Catered food trays lined the kitchen island. Silver balloons floated near the ceiling. Family friends, neighbors, cousins, people I hadn't seen in years, all packed into the house I grew up in, drinking punch and laughing, until they saw me. The laughter dipped, like someone turned the volume knob halfway down. A couple of people smiled awkwardly and turned back to their conversations. Others just stared. Miles looked up from near the stereo, a cup in his hand. His jaw tensed when he saw us. He didn't wave. He didn't walk over. My mother didn't move from the doorway. "I didn't know you were having a party," I said quietly. Renee shrugged. "It was last minute." A lie. There was no way that kind of setup happened overnight. I'd seen the invites later. Digital RSVPs, a catered vendor booked 2 weeks in advance, personalized cookies shaped like baby bottles. I nodded slowly. Okay, we'll leave this and go. I started to hand her the gift bag. She didn't reach for it. Then Sarai took a step forward. Her voice was clear, calm, and far too grown up for 10 years old. I know we shouldn't be here, she said. That's why I brought Dad's lawyer, too. She pulled the business card from her backpack and held it up. There was a beat of silence so thick you could have dropped a pin and heard it roll. The party stopped. Music played faintly behind us, but no one was dancing now. The smiles disappeared, plates lowered. My cousin Trina dropped a cracker on the floor and didn't even notice. My mother's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. I whispered, "Sarai, what are you doing?" She looked up at me. Her chin quivered, but her voice didn't shake. "I saw the texts, Mom. I saw what they said about us. I thought maybe if they knew Dad was watching, they'd stop pretending we don't exist." I felt the blood rush to my ears. My face flushed hot with embarrassment, anger, heartbreak, every emotion swirling like a tornado inside my chest. I looked around, expecting someone, anyone, to say something. Janessa, Miles' wife, was at the back of the room near the cake table. She wouldn't even look at me. Miles finally walked over, slowly, like he didn't really want to. "Talia," he said, nodding. His eyes flicked to Sarai, then away. "You really didn't get the message?" "What message?" I asked. "That it was just for close family." My stomach dropped, the kind of drop that leaves you breathless. I looked at my mom. Her eyes said everything her mouth didn't. "You're not close family anymore." I tried to swallow, but my throat burned. "I'm your sister," I said. "She's your niece." "She's Henry's daughter," Renee cut in, almost without thinking. The way she said his name, like it was mud in her mouth, made me flinch, like Sarai wasn't one of us because of who her father was. I turned to my daughter. Her face was blank now, not confused, not sad, just tired. I took the gift bag from her gently and set it on the porch. "Let's go," I said. Sarai didn't argue. She slipped her hand into mine, and for the first time, I wasn't ashamed to be walking away. But deep inside, something cracked. Not just because of what they did, but because I finally saw it for what it was. I had spent years excusing, minimizing, explaining their distance. But this wasn't distance. This was exclusion. And my daughter had seen it coming before I did. That night, after the party we weren't welcome at, I sat on the edge of Sarai's bed and brushed her hair behind her ears while she stared at the ceiling in silence. We had left the house without saying goodbye to anyone. No dramatic speeches, no yelling, just the quiet shuffle of our footsteps across my mother's porch and the click of my car door closing behind us. But inside, I was shaking, angry. Not the hot, loud kind of anger, more like a deep ache that settled into my bones, a realization I could no longer ignore. Sarai's words were still echoing in my head. I thought maybe if they knew Dad was watching, they'd stop pretending we don't exist. It hurt, not because she was wrong, but because she wasn't. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked gently, stroking her hair. She turned her head. "Number, I'm just tired of pretending they love us." That broke me. I waited until she was asleep, then stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the framed photos on the wall. My high school graduation, me holding baby Sarai, a family portrait from before the divorce. I had tried so hard to keep the picture together, emotionally, if not literally, but now I was done pretending too. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat down at the dining table. My phone buzzed. Henry, text. "Everything okay? Sarai told me what happened. Do you want me to come by?" I hesitated, then replied. "Me. Can you call me? I need your help with something." Minutes later, we were on the phone. "I want to talk to you about the trust," I said. There was a pause. "The one your grandfather set up for Sarai?" "Yeah," I said. "I think they're trying to change it. I think they already have." Henry sighed. I had a feeling something was going on. "What do I do?" My voice cracked. "I've been letting them walk all over me for years, just to avoid this exact thing. Lawyers, drama, courtrooms, but now my 10-year-old is the one fighting for us." He was quiet for a moment. Talia, listen to me. You're not doing this to fight them. You're doing this to protect Sarai. And honestly, you've been too quiet for too long. I closed my eyes. He was right. I'd kept the peace so well that I'd stopped protecting my daughter from the people hurting her the most. Family. The ones who were supposed to hold her up were the ones pretending she didn't count. Henry offered to look into the trust agreement, just to confirm that nothing had been tampered with. I agreed. The next morning, I sat Sarai down and told her everything. I talked to your dad, I said, and I'm going to talk to someone about the trust. Grandpa Earl set it up for you because he loved you. No one should be able to take that away. She looked at me for a long time, then nodded slowly. You're not mad I brought his card? I smiled. Honestly, you were braver than I've been in years. Sarai leaned her head against my shoulder. I just didn't want to be invisible anymore. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about money or parties or snide comments from my mother. It was about recognition, about my daughter growing up knowing her worth, about not shrinking to fit into a family mold that had no space for us, about not raising her to think silence meant strength when really, it just meant being left behind. So I started speaking up. I didn't post anything online. I didn't blast anyone in the group chat. But I did email Miles and Janessa, politely asking for clarity about the party and the trust. I CC'd Henry. I also emailed my mom. It wasn't angry. It was honest. If you no longer consider me part of this family, I would rather hear it from you directly than through party decorations and whispers. And if Sarai isn't family to you either, you don't need to worry about pretending. But she will always know that she belongs, with or without your approval. I didn't get a response, and maybe that was the answer I needed, but I had already made my decision. We weren't going to be invisible anymore. 3 days passed before I heard anything. No reply to my emails, no missed calls, nothing from my mom or Miles or Janessa, not even a passive-aggressive comment in the family group chat, because of course I wasn't in that one anymore. Then on Thursday afternoon, my mom called. Not texted, not emailed, called. The name Mom flashed on my screen, and my stomach twisted. I stared at it for a second before picking up. Hello? Her voice was clipped. So now you're involving lawyers. I blinked. No greeting, no, how are you? Straight to the point. I'm protecting my daughter, I said calmly. Something you should have done last weekend. There was a pause on the other end, the kind that tells you the other person is swallowing something they don't want to admit. You embarrassed everyone, she finally said. I almost laughed. No, Mom, you did. You embarrassed me when you slammed a door in your daughter's face, and you embarrassed Sarai when you told her she wasn't welcome. She wasn't invited. She's 10. She didn't respond. I took a breath. We're not pretending anymore. I know about the trust. I know about the attempt to modify it, and I know what you've been saying behind my back. Her voice got sharp. You're twisting things. It's not like that. It is exactly like that. She tried to backpedal, said something about how things had just gotten complicated with the trust when Dad passed, that Miles was trying to handle it all, that I'd always been distant since the divorce, as if my absence had been voluntary, as if I hadn't been shoved out inch by inch. But I didn't argue. I just said, we'll let the lawyers sort it out. She went silent again. Then came the final blow, the part that told me everything I needed to know. Well, she said tightly, if this is how you want things to be, don't expect to be included going forward. There it was. Not a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. A choice. Her voice was cold but calm, like she was talking about rearranging furniture, not cutting off her daughter and granddaughter. She was drawing a line in the sand, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. Thanks for the clarity, I said, and hung up. The next day, Henry forwarded me an email from the trust's attorney. Apparently, Miles had submitted paperwork to reallocate Grandpa Earl's inheritance entirely to his son, baby Micah, without mentioning Sarai, without notifying me. But the paperwork had an issue, because Grandpa had written Sarai's name in ink, not Talia's children, not heirs. He'd written Sarai J. Alton, my great-granddaughter, plain and specific. Legally, they couldn't erase her without my consent, and they didn't have it. That was the moment it all snapped into place. This wasn't about a party. This was about power, control, and ownership, over a legacy, over who gets remembered and who gets written out. I knew my grandfather loved Sarai. He used to sing to her when she was little and called her my sunshine girl. He left her something real, something permanent, and my family had tried to pretend she didn't exist. I took Sarai out for pancakes that weekend, just the two of us. The air was crisp and the leaves were starting to turn that fiery orange she loved. As she poured syrup over her stack, she asked, "Are we still going to see Grandma?" I looked at her carefully. "Do you want to?" She shrugged. "I don't think she wants to see us." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Then that's her loss," I said, "and it won't be ours." Later that night, a cousin texted me. She'd been at the party. She said people were talking, that there had been whispers, that the trust thing wasn't new. She apologized for not stepping in. She said she felt ashamed. That was the part that got me. Because until then, I thought I'd imagined it all, that maybe I was being dramatic or emotional or bitter. But no, I wasn't imagining anything. I was just finally seeing it clearly. They had tried to erase us, but Sarai, 10 years old carrying a unicorn backpack, walked right into a party where she wasn't wanted and announced to the world, "I see what you're doing, and I'm not afraid." And in that moment, everyone stopped, smiling. After everything settled, the party, the silence, the trust revelation, I expected to feel angry for weeks, but I didn't. I felt free. Not the fireworks kind of freedom, not the kind where you throw a suitcase in the car and drive toward some sunlit future. Number. It was the quiet kind, the kind where you wake up and realize you're not waiting anymore, for a phone call, for an apology, for a seat at a table you've been politely circling for years. I was done waiting, and the strange thing was, once I stopped asking to be seen, I finally saw myself more clearly than I had in years. I thought I'd mourn the loss of family, but in truth, what I mourned was the illusion of family. The version I kept building in my head to justify the way they treated me. The version where my mother would one day see me again. Where my brother would call just to check in. Where my daughter would have cousins, holidays, hugs. But real family shows up. Real family doesn't flinch when things get hard. And when I looked at who had shown up, it wasn't Renee. It wasn't Miles. It was Henry. It was Sarai. It was me. About a week after the confrontation, Sarai came home from school and handed me a drawing. It was crayon, purple and yellow, and showed two stick figures holding hands in front of a small house. She'd labeled them Mom and Me. Above it, in block letters, "My family is enough." That picture is still taped to our fridge. I cried when she gave it to me, not because I was sad, but because she had captured something it took me decades to learn. Being chosen matters more than being born into it. I'd spent so long trying to force my way back into a family that had never really made space for me. But Sarai never asked for space. She made it, with courage, with clarity, with a sparkle-covered backpack and a truth that shook the walls of my childhood home. And while some people called it dramatic or extreme, I call it something else. I call it survival. Henry helped finalize everything with the trust. Legally, Sarai's share is untouchable now. They can huff and puff, but they can't erase her. Grandpa Earl made sure of that. Turns out he knew the family he raised, and he also knew the one who'd keep his memory alive long after he was gone. One evening, Henry came over for dinner. We didn't talk about the trust. We just laughed. Sarai told him about a poem she wrote. I showed him a new recipe I'd tried. We felt like a unit. Untraditional, sure, but strong. After dinner, when Sarai was in bed, I walked him out to his car. "You did good," he said quietly, "with her, with all of this." "I don't feel like I did," I admitted. "She had to defend me. She shouldn't have to do that at 10. Henry smiled. "Maybe, but she did it because she knows you'd do the same for her 1,000 times over. That's the kind of love that sticks." And he was right. There's a power in being someone your child can trust, in being the soft place to land and the shield when the world gets ugly. I didn't do everything right, but I showed up. I kept showing up. That's what mattered. Some people in the family reached out later. My cousin Trina called and apologized for standing by. A couple of distant relatives messaged me, saying they didn't know everything that was happening. But from Renee, nothing. From miles? Silence. And I was okay with that because closure isn't always about conversation. Sometimes it's just a choice, a final one. So I made mine. No more chasing invitations. No more shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. No more raising Sarai to believe love should feel like something you have to earn. These days, our house is quieter, but warmer. We bake cupcakes on Saturdays. We do puzzles on rainy afternoons. And every once in a while, Sarai still asks if Grandma might ever call. I don't know, I tell her, but I do know this. You are enough, and we are more than enough. She smiles every time, and I smile too, because sometimes the family you build, flawed, fierce, and free, is stronger than the one you're born into. And when the world tries to make you small, sometimes the loudest thing you can do is stay standing. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt pushed out by the people who were supposed to love you most, I just want to say, you're not alone, and your voice, your truth, and your worth, they're not up for negotiation. I shared this not to shame anyone, but to remind someone out there that walking away from people who hurt you isn't weakness, it's strength. And if you've ever had to rebuild what someone else broke, just know you're already stronger than you think. If you found meaning in this story, please take a second to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story too. And if you want more real, raw stories about healing, family, and finding your voice, subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And most of all, thanks for choosing to stand tall too.